Hello, this is 𝗔𝗲𝗍𝗬 and you're watching The Shift and we're talking about food security today. Now, the 2021 edition of the SOFI report estimated the hunger excess linked to the COVID-19 pandemic at 30 million people by the end of the decade. At the global level, the prevalence of food insecurity at a moderate severe level and severe level only is higher among women than men, magnified in rural areas. According to the UN Committee on World Food Security is defined as meaning that all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. Now, in 2021, Malaysia imported a staggering 63 billion ringgit worth of food. Malaysia is ranked number 39 in the Global Food Security Index and second in Southeast Asia. Are we doing well? How can we do better? I'm here with Melissa Ong, Group Chief Officer of Impact Circle, which is an independent agri-food-tech ecosystem builder and multiplier. So, Melissa, good to see you again. You're always doing interesting work around this area, but do tell us, when was Impact Circle started and what is its purpose?
First of all, thank you so much, Freda. Also, always you're my strong supporters of getting all my work all these years, and I'm glad to be here. Now, back to your question on the first Impact Circle, what's the Impact Circle is all about. As you rightly say, we are Agri Food-Tech, Agri Food-Tech domain in the Agri Food-Tech ecosystem builder and multiplier. And we dedicated ourselves to catalyze sustainable innovation and collaboration in only particular sector, which is food and agriculture, and across Southeast Asia.
Right.
So Impact Circle, we actually connect investments and also power collaboration within the Agri Food-Tech ecosystem, and also for mainly to catalyze profitable innovation.
Right.
And in the same time, we want to expand sustainability and also the environmental awareness.
Right.
And all these things is, obviously back to the main ultimate goals is to achieve and bring greater impact for food and nutrition security.
Right.
Primarily for Malaysia.
Right. It's interesting, food and nutrition security. Yes. You may have food and may not be nutritious.
Correct.
Okay, what did the pandemic reveal about Malaysia's food security challenges and when it comes to food security, accessibility, nutrition, that sort of thing?
I think in a global scale, we all know well enough that the pandemic has actually revealed a lot of issues, especially in terms of supply chain, the fragility of the supply chain. Agricultural input is one of the main things, and obviously food supply that coming into because of the destruction in terms of logistic connectivity and etc. But however, in Malaysia here is that the nutrition in terms of like moving into the accessibly into the rural area, I think that is still the main issues and the main cause of it. So the pandemic itself, I think, is quite known by across like I mentioned, the food supply, but the accessibility of the food getting into the rural area, that is something that is not really putting greater attention on.
Right, okay. So we talk about the rural areas. Now, I understand you recently held the Food System Impact Changemaker Awards. So under innovation, you're looking for some innovative farming techniques, sustainable packaging solutions, so also advancements in food production and processing. So are there some innovative companies coming up from Malaysia or in the region? Share some of these stories.
Definitely, Malaysia has, we are great in terms of innovation, and a lot of people do not know that in the food and agriculture sector, we have, really great potential in terms of food innovation in the space of food production.
Right.
So, like, I'm talking the space of startup. That's where I'm involved in. So these Food System Changemaker Awards that we are recognizing all these agri-food-tech startups in their outstanding solutions that they are doing, trying their best to really move the needle to bring the greater impact into the food system transformation. So each one of them, bringing great, really good and amazing solutions. All these solutions is aimed to really change and to really meet the local challenges.
Okay.
So when you talk about food system change across the world, across the region, even though across country is different.
Yeah.
So
Sabah, Sarawak,
correct.
and
So you
Peninsula.
can't just say that one and apply it to all. So and for Malaysia in particularly, that we can see this Agri-Food-Tech community is all crowded in the Klang Valley. So we have 13 states. So we are trying to move in our own little effort to move all this innovation, all this technology into other states, and obviously bringing and skill all this amazing solution across to other places within Malaysia itself. So this innovation, the innovation challenge is one of the way to go forward, and a lot of startups are really gearing towards that, and they are very good in bringing across their proposition. And I think for our awards, we basically wanting to recognize those really breakthrough technologies.
Right.
So, for example, I'm giving you some example. Contract farming. A lot of people think that farming is really just indoor. I think for Klang Valley, everybody thought about hydroponic, right? But there are many types of farming. When technology deployment is concerned.
Right.
So one of it would be really like contract farming. So contract farming is actually a great way to help farmers. One of the startups really go all the way to help the startup in terms of getting their SOP listed down in the proper way, and also bringing the younger generation into the field.
Okay.
So through that, guiding them the best practices, guiding them what to do. When you say, a lot of people mistaken contract farming is that, oh, you give me a contract, I help you to farm, right? But this is different, It brings in technology, it brings in, knowledge, skills, expertise into it. So contract farming is one way to really, really can transform how farm is being, cultivated, and how the whole process can be really handled or managed.
And I guess, when you talk about the young generation, right? Nobody wants that kind of work without the help of technology, right? They might not want to enter into this industry, but if technology can make the work a little easier and more profitable, then they would come in. And of course, technology comes in to help them, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. What are some other prevailing issues that we're not aware of? Is ethical sourcing and regenerative agriculture practices a concern, for example?
I think regenerative culture is still, not really known across in Malaysia, but is widely known in US. And regenerative agriculture is a way forward to really bringing really, really lots of benefits into farming, ultimately bringing proper food. When I say proper food, mean clean, safe, and nutritious food to human being like you and me, to consume. So regenerative agriculture is really a way forward, I would say, if anyone that got to do in a cultivation using soil. So soil biodiversity is very, very important. A lot of people think that soil is just a dirt, and we step on it, we don't even bother about it, right? But underneath, our feet is a huge universe.
Right.
And
so life source.
Yes, and those are all microorganisms, and those are the ones that really help us produce good food.
Right.
And having the issue right now for Malaysia is that we, over the decade, industrialization and agrochemical has been heavily injected into our land, and compounded by a lot of chemical fertilizer, in the form of fertilizer, in a form of chemical. So can you imagine that your land has already putting chemical on it, and then you put more chemical on it, and to stimulate, they think that using the chemical version of fertilizer to stimulate the plant to grow. Right. But how long can you sustain through that manner, right? So we encourage regenerative culture. The word regenerative itself tells that we regenerate the land.
Yeah.
So how we regenerate the land? We're bringing microorganisms into the land and giving them a right ecosystem to thrive. So when the little fella under our feet thrive, obviously they produce a good food for us. I mean, this is
right.
yeah.
There's so much that goes into agriculture,
Yes.
right? And how we take little things for granted, like, you know, this whole microorganisms, and we overuse the land and
Yes.
deplete the resources, and in fact destroy it with all the chemicals as well. Anyway, what about the role of farmers, right? How can we support them?
I mean, just to tell you one simple example that, you know, a couple of years ago, we actually, you know, work and make a research and work with nearly 150 smallholder farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome, it was really appalling sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lots of these farmers, they contracted disease and skin disease and also cancer.
Wow.
Just because they're exposed to agrochemical in the daily manner.
Right.
So can you imagine that they are in that state? How can they produce good food to us? And when they produce this kind of food consistently and without anyone to come and guide them, so what will happen that not only harmful to themselves,
right.
but the food that they produce, they sell it out, and this kind of farmer, they sell it to middle and lower income people.
Right.
So can you imagine lower income people, they are poor enough and they're eating toxic food.
Right.
So this is quite sad in that sense. There's lots of farmers in, don't talk about really far in other states, but in Klang Valley itself, in 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 and all these areas, they're using marginalized land to really grow cash crop like 𝗙𝗏 and 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and all these things. And this is daily consumable vegetables, right? So they sell in a wet market, they sell it into restaurants, and all these things are not being cultivated in the proper manner. So, and they, you know, giving them the what is that called? The benefit of understanding that they are through generation. All this kind is passing down through generation,
right.
And they do not know what they do not know.
Right, exactly.
So how can now we go there to really help them? So I think farmer is really a need not to giving them really subsidies to pump them with a lot of fertilizers here and there, but really go in there how to teach them the right way of cultivating. And then obviously once they have best practices the right way, then they will cultivate a good food.
All right. So that's working with farmers. But speaking of collaboration, I understand the Impact Circle is collaborating with 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏 Nasional. So can you tell me more about this collaboration?
𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, you know, out of their great initiatives, it's called Dana Impact. It's an impact fund. A couple of years ago, they launched this 6 billion Dana Impact, and just a few months ago, I think early this year, they launched this Future Malaysia program, and they then, you know, dispersed some of the money from the 6 billion to really trying to help the startup community and to see whether there's any innovation in the space, and obviously ultimately bringing to the food security objectives. So this is called 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 Innovation Impact Challenge. So there is 3 main things is they are looking at climate change, any innovation solutions that can mitigate climate change. Second is basically social impact. How can really, you know, all these solutions bringing greater impact to the community and it does stand to the nation as a whole. And lastly, obviously in the food security, then how can they make sure that we are sustainable and, you know, enough to really bringing and supply food. Like I mentioned again, not just food, you know, to feed hunger, but really to bring a healthy, you know, well-being to the people of Malaysia. So I think 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 is doing a great job in this space. So we are very honored actually to really be selected by 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 as their outreach partner. The reason being is because of we are Agri Food-Tech, you know, ecosystem builder and multiplier, and within our Impact Circle network itself, where we call it Impact Ventures Network, we have about 150, you know, plus Agri Food-Tech, really Agri Food-Tech startup in our network. And because of our strong network, our extensive network and expertise, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 then appointed us to help them to really, you know, reach out to the relevant and obviously good startup that are able to make that change for Malaysia.
Right, and of course, the they're having a demo day on November 6th, right?
Yes, correct.
I have to commend 𝗛𝗏𝗃 because I think it was the last couple of years, they have these different kind of things to address certain things. At one time, it was for the aging.
Correct.
So they're doing all these different things to address different concerns for the world, for Malaysia as well, right? Now, food security is measured mainly through 4 criteria: availability, affordability, safety, and quality, natural resources, and resilience. Where, in your opinion, right, is Malaysia's biggest concern? All of the above, I don't say lah.
I would say that affordability is not really our main concern because, you know, we have rich people, they don't even bother about price. We go into the supermarket, we buy stuff without looking at the cost. Obviously, then the poor people will start to buying things. Again, they buy in a different area, right? So I think of all this, the accessibility is still the main issues. Like I mentioned to you earlier, is the accessibility to the rural area. So a lot of people do not know that food, I think pandemic really revealed that we can have a lot of food. But when you come into really rural area, they only can eat what they can afford. And some of them think that, okay, this is what I eat, it's more than enough. But really, that is a complete nutrition that they really complete, you know, their well-being. So that is a big question. And those people who are in the poverty line, they can't even, they just want to fill their stomach. Right? So if we be able to ensure that food accessibility in terms of what you and I eat in the city can then bring into the rural area, then I think we will complete the cycle of, you know, really the food security issues. Malaysia do not have any food security issues. I can tell you that a lot of people talk about, we worry because we're looking at the 63 billion kind of import bill. And then we started alarm. But I think behind it, I believe there is some trade, you know, a commitment behind.
When you talk about the rural areas, so don't they grow them, or the issue of the soil again?
Yes, I mean, I would say that rural area, as long as they don't touch on agrochemicals, their soil will be all right. Right? Because the little fella will grow happily under our feet. But then the moment they touch on agrochemicals, they are trying to grow in the fast speed. Then that is where the contamination, you know, comes into the biodiversity. And I think that for, you know, for rural area, is the affordability that, you know, comes into it. And obviously, if they do not know that out there are certain food that really, like protein, for example, right? So if they can't say that, look, there are certain proteins that they can't reach to them. So, I mean, in the complete cycle of nutrition, then they will lack of that part. You can't be eating vegetable all the time. You can't be, you know, eating just chicken all the time. You want to have a more flavor into it, right? So, and bearing in mind that, you know, during that time of the pandemic, they eat whatever they eat, but they don't have excessive or supply if they don't grow it in the, you need all the external factors that come in to complement it.
You know, so now do you think with people like 𝗛𝗏𝗃, is there enough funding for agripreneurs generally?
For 𝗛𝗏𝗃 is doing their part. Obviously, 6 billion is not going to spend in one go. The Future Malaysia program, they have announced about 100 over million, I think 180 million that they spent just for this program. And obviously, over the span of few years, they're going to wisely spend that 6 billion and their investment, their sovereign fund, right? So their job basically for deployed capital. And the like of, I think they're giving huge opportunity when it comes to the investment or funding opportunity for the Agri-Food-Tech startup. So, but ultimately, when it comes to Agri-Food-Tech startup in the investment scene, for Malaysia, it still lack. We still need lots of people, especially the private sector, to step up. Government can only do that little bit. And we encourage the government to continue giving grant. But obviously, the grant, they cannot just give few billions, you know, and they have little and they want to spread it across. So you see the grant is like 100,000, 200,000. But yet, this 100,000, 200,000 is good for other sector like fintech and you know, health tech and etc. But agri-food-tech, you can't. You give 100,000, you can't help them in any way because their R&D is very expensive, and their equipment is very expensive. And by the time, you know, they spend on all these things, it's already starting a billion. So I mean, I've been going out to tell investors, please don't feed them and don't treat like a monkey. Don't feed them peanuts, right? So at least if you really want to help the agri-food-tech startup and to see a really substantial growth in them, you need to invest in them at least $1 million.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least $1 million. Even in fact that Khazanah, I'm very glad this time they actually move out their grant to $500,000. And
Right.
you can see that compared with last year, the aging challenge, I believe that's 30,000.
Right.
So now they move it to $500,000. You can see the significance, and they also understand that Agri-Food-Tech need more funding.
More funding.
Yes.
Okay, so
to them to really grow or scale into a desired stage.
Right.
Because otherwise they can't do anything. You are just giving them what they can do is that they spend a lot in the marketing. They spend a lot to really probably pay some debts or to feed their rate line, but they can't do much. They can't do something that upgrade their structure.
Right.
They upgrade their technology. They can't because those are expensive.
Okay. Okay. Now, what's your vision for Impact Circle at the end of the day?
So, in the heart of what we do in the ecosystem builder, we really want to build a vibrant ecosystem, and obviously that these are the ecosystem that focus really on investment, increasing investment, creating policy incentives, and building capacity. And also ultimately really will bring greater impact, scalable impact in the food and agriculture sector, and then leading to food and nutrition security. So that is our main goal, and this is something that we support, Impact Circle support voluntarily in this domain. So we support Agri-Food-Tech startup as our mandate for nation building. All right,
and we hope to see more innovative solutions in this space as well. Thanks, Melissa Ong from Impact Circle. I hope you've learned something about food security. And of course, you've been watching The Shift. I'm Frida Liu.